Welcome to Flunking the Written, a fully spoiled Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast in which two Uber fans break down every episode of the show. Join Kimberly and Megan every other Tuesday as they overanalyze each scene and discuss the Buffyverse at large. Now let's meet up with the Scoobies and get into this episode of Flunking the Written.
What can I say? I flunked the written.
All right, Kim, we are ready to get into our discussion of Doppelgangland, which was written and directed by Joss Whedon, and the DVD blurb is, while casting a magic spell to help Anya regain her powers, Willow and Anya inadvertently summon Willow's evil twin, a vampire from an alternate universe. Oh, man, I'm excited.
They just tell everything. I watched this and did not have I didn't have a whole lot of notes compared to what I usually get.
Mine is mostly just enthusiasm. There's a couple of things, especially towards the end, but mostly just enthusiasm. That's what I have for this episode. I enjoy it.
It's a very good one.
All right, so we start in a dark setting where Anya is trying desperately to get D'Hoffryn. This is our first appearance of D'Hoffryn.
It's the first time we've seen Anya since The Wish.
Yeah, this is all kinds of exciting right out the gate.
Yeah, it's like when I first watched this, I assumed she
was a one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no. I just assumed that she had disappeared into Demon Land.
Yeah. Or
ex-Demon Land, because, it never showed her again. And it never occurred to me that she would still be a student at the school.
Yeah, she's just been there the whole time.
Speaking of, why is she still a student at the school?
Because...
why is she still going to school? Is she someone's daughter? Does she have her own apartment?
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't make sense why she's still attending the school.
Yeah.
Is she just wanted to get an education after so many years? I don't know.
She's really not seeming to enjoy it. I don't know why she thought. Maybe it's just because that was where she was already plugged in.
So she just stayed there to graduate?
Yeah. Well, and I think that kind of suits Anya to a degree when we look at her entire arc, because part of Anya's arc is she just kind of clings to things, right? When something's there, she latches onto it and kind of just takes that as her identity at that time. That's what we get with the big reveal of Selfless, which I'll talk and gush about a huge amount when we get to that many, many years from now.
Yeah, it's going to be a while.
It's going to be a while. But yeah, I could see that kind of fits into that idea of Anya of she loses her power, so she's stuck as a Sunnydale High School student, so she's just going to be a Sunnydale High School student. But here she's trying. She is.
Yeah. The script starts with, this episode will begin with a big ass previously depicting the events of episode 9. And that tickled me, the way that was written in the script. A big ass previously. So, yeah, she is determined to get her powers back from D'Hoffryn, who is refusing to help her get them back. He says, you're immortal now, live your life and then die. And Anya's like, no, give me another chance. I can change this. And D'Hoffryn's just like, no.
Yeah.
Then she swears up and down that she is going to get her power back.
Yeah. She's very determined. She's very focused on that. I really like this version of Anya. We get a lot of different versions of Anya because she's probably one of the more inconsistent characters when it comes to different writers' interpretations of her. But I really enjoy this Anya. In this episode, I'm all about Anya. I'm very pleased.
Well, I became an Anya fan after the Body episode. I think everyone decided they loved Anya a little bit more after that one.
Yeah.
Obviously.
And I like that there's already a little bit thrown in here where she's talking about that D'Hoffryn can fold the fabric of time and all of this stuff. I love that there's always an acknowledgement that D'Hoffryn is incredibly, incredibly powerful. Insanely powerful. Just one of the most powerful beings that we deal with in the Buffyverse. And he just doesn't really do much, and I kind of love that. He's just kind of chilling, doing his thing, running his little pyramid scheme. I like him. The power in which the vengeance demons have to basically create universes and bend time and space, and the fact that D'Hoffryn's kind of the head honcho when it comes to vengeance demons. Just is enough to tell you don't really want to mess with them.
Yeah, they're pretty strong. Anya's the only one we really get to know well, and she seems to go back and forth between chaotic neutral and chaotic good.
Yeah, she's always chaotic.
Oh yeah, it's always chaotic with her. Maybe she's not ever chaotic good. It might be back and forth between chaotic evil and chaotic neutral.
I think that's more fitting.
Yeah.
She is kind of the perfect embodiment of chaotic neutral. I like it's
very much.
That's a good fitting description of her. Oh man. And yeah, she says that she's going to take things into her own hands, you know, if the Hoffman won't help her, then she'll find someone who will, and that's when we cut to the high school yard where Willow is floating a pencil just out in the open, real casual like.
Oh, early witch Willow.
Oh, it's so cute.
And she's having a conversation with Buffy. Two things that happen really, really quickly in this conversation is first, and I'll talk about this a lot.
Okay.
Well, maybe not a lot, but twice during here. But Buffy mentions the Watcher Council shrink is heavily into tests. He's got tests for everything. TATs, Rorschach, associative logic. They even have that test to see if you're crazy, or that ask if you hear voices, or ever wanted to be a florist. Now, who is the Watcher Council shrink? How did a Watcher Council shrink get there? Agree to not have Faith brought back and to let Wesley stay there and test them. Why are they taking tests from the Watcher Council of how strong they are and how smart they are? Like, what is this?
So
happening here?
I had a confusion too, because like it's almost presented like, oh, this is your like annual evaluation, which, you know, never happened before this moment. But it's kind of like if you're just watching it without really paying attention, that's how it's presented. There is a moment later.
Well, I always got it where they're doing it because of Faith.
Yeah. There is a moment later where it's kind of specifically stated that it's something to do with Faith.
But why? Like,
well, I
it's
guess
the Watchers Council. Why are they being all magnanimous and letting her stay?
I don't know. They figured they wrote themselves in a corner and they wanted Faith to stay in Sunnydale, and so they had to figure out a way out of it.
So, and who is the Watcher Council shrink?
Yeah, like that was the part.
Did he come there?
That was the part that I really was just like, wait, whoa, hold on a second. The Watchers Council has what now?
And he came to Sunnydale to evaluate you and Faith? If I was Buffy, I'd be like, I don't need an evaluation, okay? You know, no. I mean, it's only a few episodes from now that she quits the council, but like, they're being very, very micromanagey of their slayers.
See, in my mind, the fact that they have this stuff and aren't always doing this makes me feel like they don't micromanage enough, based on how I feel like the Watchers Council is presented, of wanting to be a controlling force. But then they tend to just ignore this. Like, I'll just complain about. I'm all
like, go home.
I'll just complain about the Watchers Council because the Watcher Council makes no sense. Like this,
it really does not make sense.
This I can buy that they evaluate the Slayer and do all these tests and make sure that the Slayer's performing at peak performance and all of this stuff. But the fact that they're not doing it more often, really,
that makes no sense, though. They have one Slayer. She's one. She's the only one. It doesn't matter if she's a weak Slayer. She's it. She's all they've got.
Unless they decide to kill her and have another one called, which I don't put at all beyond their yeah.
I can see that point. I can see the Watchers Council doing that. But, like, let's say they're not above, like, not going that far as to kill her. There's no point in the rest of it if they're not planning to kill her to get another one. The results of the test don't matter because she's the Slayer. She's the only one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, who cares if she can run a 3-minute mile? Like, I don't know if that's good or not.
I don't know. I don't know how running works.
Yeah,
but
it sounded right.
But
like, who cares? Because if she can't, there's not another Slayer except in this situation when there is. Mm-hmm. But are they planning to just like pick one?
I don't think,
like, whoever wins the tests is the Watcher Council Slayer.
I think this is all purely, and I don't know why Buffy's being dragged into it
Going
as much
along
as
with
it
it.
was,
Yeah.
as much as she was, because the Watchers Council seemed to be very focused on Faith specifically in the previous episode. But it's definitely the aftermath of killing the deputy mayor that has sparked this need, and it doesn't make perfect sense as to what their end goal is. But for me, while we have seen the idea of like Giles training Buffy and trying to focus on areas where she's needs more work and stuff like you see that progression. Like for me, like the evaluation of the Watchers Council is something that we'll get again in Checkpoint when they're trying to get information from the Watchers Council about Glory, and they put Buffy through all the tests in that episode. And it's something, it's not just, oh, we're gonna evaluate her to see how good she is, but we're gonna evaluate her to put her in her place, to make her understand that she works for us and we call the shots. And that's really what the Watchers Council,
in a few episodes, backfires spectacular. For both of them, it backfires.
Yeah.
Okay, well, here's my second thing about the beginning of that conversation. Why does wanting to be a florist mean you're crazy?
I meant to look that up. Because I think I have definitely
is that like a thing?
I'm sure there's something. I don't know if it's supposed to be a play on words that I'm not understanding. I don't know. It might just be like an attempt at Buffy speak that I'm not getting.
Well, it might be one of those life mysteries that we will just never know.
We'll just have to accept it. So anyway, Willow asks if Buffy wants to go get sugared up on mochas, and Buffy again is still just focused on being as good as she can in this evaluation that apparently they're going through. And Willow says that competition is natural and healthy, and then has the line that she can beat Faith in the psych tests by just not marking the box that says, I sometimes like to kill people.
Buffy then says that Faith has had it rough, and in different circumstances that could be her. Mm-hmm. Which took her a while to get there.
Yeah, they definitely play with this idea of, and I'm not exactly sure what their hope was here, but they play with this idea of circumstances leading you to a different version of yourself, and they play with that with the Vamp Willow. But like the Vamp Willow is a very specific case scenario, but it is kind of funny because it also foreshadows, in a very long haul kind of foreshadow of Dark Willow much later on in the series, of this idea that people can make that shift and circumstances can lead people to do terrible things. And it's interesting that we have in this episode where Willow's comes face to face with a quote unquote dark version of herself and is also being judgmental of Faith and her circumstances and what's going on with her, that she goes down that same path much later in the series.
I feel like Willow has more reason to go down that path, though.
Well, we're definitely more connected and aware of Willow's story at that point. Like, there's still a lot we don't know about Faith as far as what came before Sunnydale.
Yeah. The next scene is Willow in Snyder's office, and he is basically threatening her to spend her free time and her school time tutoring Percy, who... what sport does he play?
Some form of sports ball. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I said. I don't really know what he plays. He's got a fast break.
Yeah.
And 3-point line. He plays basketball.
Hey. I was actually kind of surprised because I simultaneously forgot about Percy, and when I realized it was Percy, thought Percy was a much bigger deal than Percy actually is. But Percy's like in 5 episodes.
Yeah.
But in my mind, when I start listing out like the random high school kids, Percy gets thrown in that mix, but he doesn't come into, like, this is his first episode, so he doesn't come in till the very end of the high school years.
Yeah, he's not a real big character in any of them.
Yeah. I don't know, like, his numbers aren't that much worse than Larry's, I imagine, but Larry just seems like such a much more significant random Sunnydale High student than Percy does.
We know about Larry longer. We've known about Larry since last season.
Yeah. Yeah, Larry's been spread out more. Percy is in this episode, and then like 3 more this season, and then 1 randomly next season.
Snyder is desperately wanting the football team to win, And Percy is not making the grade, so Willow is being forced to tutor him.
I like how you said he plays basketball, and then you're like, he wants the football team the way he's all.
Oh, is that what I said? I'm sorry. Was the basketball...
The sport.
Yeah.
He wants the sport to the sport.
And I'm going to have to learn it all, too, because Arthur is very much getting into basketball and baseball and stuff. And I'm like, why? Why can't we've taught both of your brothers to be nerds. Why are you not going that way too? But okay, anyway, Snyder really wants to win, and he is going to force Willow to tutor Percy and make sure that he gets his good grades. I find this situation odd because instead of making Willow tutor him so that he can get the good grades, I'm wondering why Snyder just doesn't make the teachers give him A's.
Yeah, like, didn't he have that conversation with Willow in season 2 with another student? It was just like, he's a very important person. He's like, the swim team's gonna have a big year. You gotta just fudge some numbers and give him a good grade.
Yeah, so why not do that with Percy? Just tell him they have to give him A's. Or you're the principal, go in and change his grades to A's. I don't know if principals can actually do that or not, but...
But yeah, you know that Snyder's sleazy enough to do stuff like that. Like, he would have no problem doing that.
Instead, he's threatening Willow, and he mentions that she's gotten a letter of acceptance from every school with a stamp. Like, if they can afford to buy a stamp, they've accepted Willow. She's been accepted at colleges she didn't ever apply to.
Yeah.
But she says she still has classes, and she doesn't want to fall behind. I'm like, oh, and Rosenberg's like, you know what? You're good. You have to tutor him. And then she's talking to Buffy again in the library, explaining what happened with Snyder. And they're in the library, and Buffy says that Snyder wants her to kick his ass. And I was like, no, I'll be okay. I just hate the way he bullies people. He just assumes their time is his. And cue Giles walking from his office and demanding Willow get on the computer and start trying to get into the mayor's files. Mm-hmm. And Willow's like, okay.
Oh, at this point, Faith and Wesley come into the library. Faith's pretty put together. Wesley's a little bit worse for wear.
Faith did quite well on the obstacle field. Still a little sloppy, though.
You feel up to taking Buffy out, or shall I?
Oh, no, I'll be fine. Just give me a minute. And some defibrillators if you're not too much trouble.
As it kind of goes through, this is where Faith is just like, you're gonna love it, B. It's just like fun, only boring. And this is when Giles says the evaluation is a necessary part of the councils. And this is where Faith cuts in, is like, I know I'm on board, just shooting my mouth off. So that's the one little cue that's actually in there, that this has something to do with the situation that Faith has found herself in.
Yeah, and I'm curious why nobody is wondering why Faith is so in easygoing with this. Like, y'all know she wouldn't care. Like, even if she wasn't working for the mayor, do you see Faith doing all this and being on board?
Yeah, like
it's obvious something's going on.
But I feel like their justification is probably like, okay, she's course correcting, right? She had this emotional back and forth, and now she's trying to course correct and be focused and by the books, because she thinks that might just be the easiest way to get through this. And I could see that logic going on there. But anyway, Buffy goes to get ready for her turn, and Faith gives her a little good luck and taps her on the shoulder as she leaves, and then goes and starts investigating what Willow's doing. And Willow admits that she's trying to access the mayor's personal files and that the barriers are tricky, but eventually she'll get through them. And this is when we cut to a very large, luxurious studio apartment.
This conversation is hilarious. Mm-hmm. It's just, there's so much cuteness and funniness in here.
Yeah.
Faith is just amazed that the mayor has given her this place, and he's like, no slayer of mine, which they're kind of bonding already. He's already calling her hers. No slayer of mine is going to live in a flea bag hotel.
That place has a very unsavory reputation. There are immoral liaisons going on there.
Yeah, plus all the screwing.
The mayor's like, keep your old place to see your friends. And she goes to jump on the bed. He gets really upset because her shoes are on the bed.
Yeah, I get it.
I wouldn't like that either. And then she goes up to him and goes, "Thanks, sugar daddy." And he's like, "No, I don't find that sort of thing amusing. I'm a family man." And I'm like, "But they're all dead. They've like been dead for 100 years. Like even the most religious and buttoned up type of person would be okay with you, being interested in someone else, not Faith, because that's gross because she's a child and you're, you. But like you could find somebody,
Yeah, he could move on. But it's also, I think, implied that as a family man, he's not interested in those, immoral liaisons himself.
Right.
So he
or in Faith being like a sugar baby or something.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Even though he's evil.
And it's interesting. It's been pointed out that like part of the endearing quality of the mayor to Faith is that he doesn't view her as a sexual object. And she is clearly someone who has been sexualized by others for a long time, based on what tidbits we have been given. And so that could be another, like, he's giving her a lot of the things that she's really needed, support, love, understanding, and the realization that she's a kid, right? And was forced to grow up way too fast, probably before she ever was called as a Slayer, forced to grow up way too fast. And now she's getting taken care of, and she's getting a PlayStation, and, is just kind of treated like the kid that she is. And it's real wholesome and sweet. I love these wholesome villains that are plotting to kill Willow.
Yeah.
So precious.
Which is a good time for her to have a evil twin.
Yeah. It's all very convenient, but we love it all the same. I do like that when he says, "Let's kill your little friend," there's kind of an uncomfortableness there with Faith. And you can definitely see that she's still very conflicted, which, again, works with her arc so well, that she doesn't just put on the black hat and accept it. It still is a little bit of she's trying to figure it out. She's getting a lot of the things that she wants, but when the mayor can just so casually be like, let's kill this Willow, and she's just like, ooh, and then he again takes that conversation and gives her what he needs. Is like, no, I wouldn't ask you to do it, and just kind of redirects it, and then says, also, PlayStation!
Yeah.
And then everything's good again. No worries on Faith. And then this adorableness.
Yeah, Willow runs into Oz.
Oz, hi.
Oh, there's something about you that's causing me to hug you. It's like I have no will of my own.
They have an awkward conversation where Willow wants to know where he's been and that they had a gig in Monterey, and Willow's like, I didn't know. And Willow says, well, I didn't figure you for missing school. And Willow says, you think I'm boring. And then Oz says, I'd call that a radical interpretation of the text.
Mm-hmm.
Because, she's going through something and like feeling like everybody thinks she's boring and reliable and never changes and stuff. But then they just kind of, Oz says, we're playing the Bronze tonight. And she's like, well, I can't come, I have too much homework. And that's it. And in my notes, I've got, Oz, can't you see she's upset? Help her work through this. That's what you're there for.
Mm-hmm.
But he just leaves.
Yeah, he does, explain, if you get done early, he's still, I think in my mind, this is him showing that he supports her for being the way she is, and, yeah, it would have been nice to be, at least have a line that's just
oh,
what's wrong, or why you think that, or, but he has the radical interpretation of the text to assure her that that's not.
I feel like she would need a little more than that. I definitely would.
It's interesting because it's all about context, right? Because Willow thinks she's boring and reliable as a high school student, but she's a practicing witch that can float pencils and regularly fights the undead with her Slayer best friend. She is... she's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
She got some stuff going. But yeah, she's definitely going through something, and she's having this kind of identity crisis, which is something that they're going to continue going through for the rest of this year and through their first year of college is a lot about identity as well. And so that's something that's reevaluated over and over again. But like the idea of like, she's got all of these acceptance letters. She's the model student. She's so smart. She can tutor anybody and has all this homework that's expected of her and all of these expectations that not only are placed on her by others, but that she places on herself. I kind of go back to the conversation that she had with her mother in Gingerbread, where she's just like, you know, I'm practicing the black arts and I have a boyfriend who's in a band. Like, you know, there's things that I think she's wanting to identify with more, and yet she kind of continues to fall back in that quiet, shy, nerdy, brainy kid that we saw in season 1, and you see that being a reoccurring thing with her. It's like, it's what her nightmare is partly about in Restless, right? Of her always still going back to that shy, quiet one that everybody overlooked and just knew was really smart and didn't understand all the power and all of the abilities that she had beyond that. And so that's a side of Willow that we get to play with a little bit here, but also get to continue to play with as the series progresses. And I like that we don't ever really in the Buffyverse forget where our characters came from. And I think that's really important, is to remember what the beginning of these character story arcs were. And this is one of those moments where Willow's starting to really shift. Like, you've seen the little gradual shifts, but this is her consciously deciding herself to shift how she presents to others. Which is funny, because in this episode, they like purposefully like over cutesify her with all of the wardrobe choices that they do.
Yeah, fuzzy. She's very fuzzy.
She's very fuzzy. But yeah, like we see it here, and then in the next scene, she's trying to talk to Percy about where they need to meet up and how they need to go over everything, and Percy's just like, no, you're gonna do it. That's you know, that's what Snyder said. And she was just like, no, I'm gonna tutor you. And he's just like, what meeting were you at? And then just kind of moves on. So like, just another example of her kind of feeling like she's being walked all over. And then she sits down with her banana and she's like, I'm eating this now. It's not lunchtime. I don't even care.
Oh yeah, I love that. The banana thing. On my notes with that little scene, I've just got Percy as a douche.
Yeah.
I actually asked Adam what a more polite word for a douche is, but we couldn't come up with one that was, you know, that perfect of a word.
Yeah.
You know.
And yeah. Again, kicking her while she's down. Willow's there, peeling her banana, and Buffy and Xander run up asking if she taped the biography class from last Friday, and she's like, and then they call her Old Reliable.
Yeah, no one wants to get called that.
No. She calls it out and said there's a sexy nickname, and then there's this really funny, like, back and forth where they're getting everything confused.
It's fine, I'm Old Reliable.
She just means, you know, the geyser. You're like a geyser of fun that goes off at regular intervals.
That's Old Faithful.
Isn't that the dog that the guy had to shoot?
That's Old Yeller.
Willow has, like, a moment here where she's just like, I'm not just some doormat, okay? Like, I need people to understand that they can't just walk all over me mentality, which is a nice moment for her, trying to take ownership of the fact that there's a lot of people that seem to be just expecting of her. She's at that point where she just keeps letting it build until it's going to explode. And you think it's actually going to be her that explodes and does something crazy, but instead we get Vamp Willow instead. Which, I mean, she goes and does a risky spell with Anya without actually investigating it, which is definitely something that Willow is wont to do at times when she just decides to do magic because she wants to, or she thinks it's going to be the quick fix. The answer to all of her woes. She turns to magic when she's feeling like she needs something to bring her back. And so, yeah, like, that's all building up to her getting upset with them and deciding that she's going to stomp away, and Buffy starts to follow her, and she's just like, you know what? I need to actually be able to storm away without someone chasing me.
Which is very funny. It's when Anya comes up and asks her to help with a spell, and Willow gets really excited about liking the black arts.
Yeah.
And they go to do the spell, and Anya explains she's looking for a necklace that was her mom's and passed down for generations, but it had gotten stolen. So they go to do the spell, and in the middle of it, Willow gets flashes of the previous world, the world without Buffy, when her Xander were still vampires, and she sees like Buffy killing Xander and Oz about to kill her and everything. The flashbacks stop, and Willow stands up, and she's like, "Yeah, what was that? No, that's a little blacker than I like my arts."
Yeah.
And they talk for a little while, and then Anya's like, "I'm just trying to find my necklace." And then Willow, "Did you try looking inside the sofa in hell?"
Great.
Which is really great. And then Willow says she's not going to help her, and Anya gets upset because she can't do it by herself. And Willow leaves, and Anya calls her an idiot child. And then Willow gives her a little speech about how magic is dangerous. Don't toy with it. And then you see Anya mad because she can't find the necklace, and she breaks the plate that they used to draw the necklace on. And as she does that, Vampire Willow wakes up in the empty plant they were in. I wonder if this scene is one of the reasons that Anya and Willow never really like each other. That everything's always kind of tense, and like at one point it comes up, and they blame it on Xander being between them. But I wonder if this is part of it.
Yeah.
Because this is really their first interaction with each other. Anya lied to Willow about a spell. Willow ran out on a spell she was going to help Anya with. Anya called her an idiot child, you know?
Yeah.
I wonder if this is part of it.
Well, and she's definitely framed as a bad guy in this episode because she continues to like work with Vamp Willow and stuff later, and there's further interaction between Anya and Willow. There's like it's so funny because obviously the Anya Xander relationship becomes such a big deal, but it takes a while before we actually get Anya and Xander interacting at all.
Yeah.
Anya's just interacting with everybody else.
Well, then we have Vamp Willow wake up, and she looks around and says, "This is weird." So yeah, she goes outside and is walking down the street, and for some reason an old lady says, "Excuse me, young lady," to her. Now, I mean, I don't consider myself an old lady, but I am probably middle-aged. And if I was walking down the street looking for someone to ask directions of or whatever, and there's people everywhere, I'm probably not going to choose the girl that looks like a dominatrix serial killer to ask directions from. But anyway, the old lady is like, "Excuse me, young lady," and Vamp Willow whips her head around and growls at the old lady. Who's like, "Oh, never mind." And walks off.
Vamp Willow's just kind of taking it all in because this isn't her lovely, terrible Sunnydale that she came from. And then she goes to the bronze. We have Kay's Choice performing Virgin State of Mind, which is like a song that I know I listened to multiple times. I don't know if it's on one of the soundtracks or what it is, but it is a song that I remember listening to back in the day. And I was just like, oh my god, I forgot about this one when it started playing. But yeah, Willow is absorbing the room and being all sad because there's not nearly as many people in chains.
As there should be.
Yeah. And then, eventually, as she's walking around, Percy spots her and is just like, "What are you doing trick-or-treating? You're supposed to be at home doing my history report." And says, "Till we graduate, I own your ass." And this is when Vamp Willow says, "Bored now," and hits him so hard that he is sent flying back onto the pool table. And there's multiple background actors to be like, "Whoa, whoa, hey, whoa."
I don't understand why people keep going to the bronze.
She's talking about how she's having a terrible night and asks Percy if he wants to make it better, and ends up basically in a position where she's just slowly choking him to death. And Xander shows up trying to figure out what's going on and then spots them and then runs to Willow's rescue, telling Percy to back off and stay the hell away from her. And Percy's like, "Oh yeah, sure," and then runs away. And then he turns and takes in all that is Willow.
Just kind of like changing the look. Idle threat with you, Willow. Which I like that.
I do like that little bit of sit up and payoff of she's just like, I could change the way I dress. And then Vamp Willow shows up. But Vamp Willow's excited to see Xander and starts caressing him and gets very familiar. And Xander's like, "Whoa, hands in new places." And then she realizes that he's actually alive and gets much less into it.
Mm-hmm.
And she starts being all distraught that everything's different. And this is where Buffy comes in. Doesn't realize it's Willow at first, and then starts freaking out that it is Willow. And then talking about how extreme the outfit is. And I'm just like, okay, I mean, it's extreme. But I don't think it's any more extreme than what you had her dress up in for Halloween that one year.
Yeah, it's not. It actually covers more.
Yeah, so, you know.
Speaking of clothes, Buffy is appropriately dressed for the season during every scene in this episode, and I'm loving it.
Willow looks at Buffy and says, I don't like you. And Buffy's kind of taken aback and trying to be like, I'm sorry and everything. And that's when Willow just says she's leaving now. And Xander says, I'm not loving the new you, Will. And Buffy tries to catch up with her. And Willow turns back, bearing vamp face, and roars, get off me, and leaves as Buffy and Xander take in the fact that Willow is presumably a vampire. And I don't know how you would do this, because we'll get this and then we'll get the next scene a little bit later on. I don't know how you would do this to make it feel right, but it's never gonna feel right. Their reaction.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like they did a pretty good job.
They did a pretty good job, but it just doesn't quite feel right. I think they handled it with enough weight that you could possibly handle it with the audience being fully aware of what's going on and all of that situation that's happening, to where it's not just being bogged down by something that, is just a kind of, you have to play it with a certain amount of humor while still making it feel real enough that they actually think that Willow's dead in this moment. Mm-hmm. And it's a hard thing to balance. So yeah, Vamp Willow's walking outside the bronze, and that's when she gets attacked by the group of vamps that were sent by the mayor. She handles them easily and holds one of them down while threatening him and asking him who he works for, breaking his fingers along the way until he says that he works for the mayor, and then she breaks another finger and says, who do you work for? And he says, you. And I just love that so much.
Oh, yeah. She is big mob boss vibes from her.
Yeah, which is funny, how quickly she does that in this world. Which it's shown that her and Xander were the master's right hands in the Wishverse. So she's definitely high up on the hierarchy of vampire bosses. But it is interesting that she's able to just so easily become leader of the vamp gang. I enjoy that quite a bit. And then, yeah, we have this scene, which I kind of talked about a little bit before. It's done well enough. I really I don't know how you could make it better than this without making it really over the top, right? Because us as the audience is fully aware that Willow's fine. So I don't know how they would make it better than this. But it's still it doesn't feel quite right, does it? Mm-mm. But it's good. Buffy and Xander return, Giles is there and asks, what is it? And then it cut to the three of them just sitting on the stairs, all in shock. And there's some funny back and forths.
She was truly the finest of all of us.
Way better than me.
Much, much better.
There is a little exchange here that was cut out of the script where Buffy says, we just saw her at lunch, how could? And then Xander says, it's all my fault. Mm-hmm. And what was cut out is Giles says, what makes you say that? And Xander says, I don't know, statistical probability. Mm-hmm. And then we go right into Buffy saying it's her fault. And then Willow walks in and it's like, oh, who died?
And Xander jumps into action with his cross and says, get back, demon, while waving the cross in Willow's face, and then can't figure out why it's not working and kind of shakes it a little bit to see if maybe it's broken and then sticks it back in her face.
At which Buffy runs past Xander, gives Willow a great big giant hug. They squeeze her and she's like, why are y'all crazy? And then as soon as they let go, Giles grabs her and gives her a great big hug and lets her go. And then she's like, hey, y'all didn't all happen to do a bunch of drugs, did you? Very funny. And they try to explain that something strange is happening. We have a little scene at the Bronze where Anya goes to sit down and tries to order a beer.
Oh my God, I love this so much.
Yeah, the waiter won't let her.
I'm 1,120 years old. Just give me a freaking beer.
ID.
Give me a Coke.
This is going back to what I was like, I love this version of Anya. This is so great to me. Like her just being so annoyed with her situation. Oh, I'll have so much to say about Anya along the way. And Anya is one of those characters that's so close to being like top 5 for me. Like if just something was done a little bit differently and she was a little bit more consistent and like she's really good in moments, but then other moments I'm just like, oh God, whoever wrote this Anya doesn't need to write Anya anymore. And honestly, a lot of times it's Joss Whedon. A lot of times I don't think Joss Whedon writes Anya very well, but he did good in this episode, so I'll give him that. But yeah, it makes me so happy to see this kind of early version of Anya where they haven't really gone into the extreme comedic overtones that tends to overwhelm her character later on. And, like, I get it, Emma Caulfield's got amazing comedic timing and stuff like that, but I have trouble with the connecting tissue of how did this Anya get to be the Anya that we see in, like, season 5. So, just comedic relief all the time. Because here, she's funny, but she's realistic. And yeah, I'll have a lot of upsetting things to talk about with Anya as we go forward. But right now, I'm just basking in the glory that I'm 1,120 years old. Just give me a freaking beer brings me. And there's another great exchange here with Oz and Devin where they're talking about how they need a roadie, and Oz is just like, well, sure, other bands have roadies, but they also know how to play more than 3 chords. And Devin's just like, yeah, but that's just the fruity jazz bands.
Yeah, I love that. Love it.
An angel shows up, and we get a rare Angel Oz moment.
Yeah.
I enjoy that so much. If something had played out differently and Seth Green had stayed on, I still think ultimately the idea of breaking up him and Willow would have made a lot of sense. But have him go over to the Angel series, because I think he would have played so well on Angel. I think he would have been a lot of fun on Angel. Little back and forth where he's just like, you're looking for Buffy, and Angel says, as always, and as they're talking about that, and that she hasn't been there, the vamps kind of just take over.
I thought that as always comment from Angel. Mm-hmm. It was very Oz-like.
Yeah.
It was also really sweet, because you don't really hear Angel do stuff like that very often. Mm-hmm. Like, say stuff like that,
Yeah. He's feeding off that Oz energy.
Apparently.
So yeah, I have the vamp's name is Alphonse down here in this transcript that I'm reading off of. I'm not sure if that's in the script that you're reading off of, but Alphonse is the vamp that's kind of the leader of the vamps that Vamp Willow took over. So I'm going to refer to him as Alphonse. And
it is Alphonse in here too.
He comes in and kind of takes control of the broads and says, nobody cause any trouble or try to leave, and nobody gets hurt. And that's when Oz and Angel have another quick little back and forth where Angel's just like, why don't I believe him? And Oz is like, well, he lacks credibility.
Okay, and I absolutely love that, and I say that. Like, I've stolen that in life and say that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, just a few nights ago, our 4-year-old has a habit of coming into our bed in the middle of the night. And we were putting him to bed, and we're like, so where are you going to stay tonight? And he says, in my bed. We're like, where are you not going to go tonight? And he says, in your bed. And then Adam says, what? I don't really believe him. And I was like, well, he lacks credibility. I'm like, so, and I've said it before in lots of different situations, but like, I love that so much I stole.
They basically talk about if Angel can get out of there, and Angel says he can get in through the skylight in the roof, but that he may be needed here, and Oz says that the odds are against him, and this is when Vamp Willow enters and announces that everybody's all afraid, it's just like old times, and Oz, like, steps forward slightly and looks, just tried to take it in, and just says, get Buffy, do it now, and Angel just immediately starts climbing the stage ropes and getting up to the skylight.
Yeah. And I'm looking at this, and Oz is, when he says that, like, get Buffy, do it now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's showing, like, an extreme amount of trust in Buffy.
Yeah.
Because Oz did not that fast realize, oh, Willow's a vampire. She's got to be killed. He's getting Buffy so Buffy can figure it out, so Buffy can solve the problem, so Buffy can help her.
Possibly. There's also the argument, because we know that Oz can smell.
Yeah.
So he could potentially have, once he saw Willow and saw her in those circumstances, be able to smell her as different than Willow and maybe be able to determine that she's not alive. I don't know how his smell senses work exactly, but he does have those fancy smell senses.
She is Willow.
Yeah, but does the undead vampire Willow smell differently than the alive Willow? I would imagine so. I don't know for certain.
Maybe.
I feel like we've had this conversation about, like, what do vampires smell like before?
I would guess they smell like nothing.
Fun fact, Vamp Willow goes up to ask one of the bronze goers what her name is, and her name is Sandy. This is not the last time we see Sandy, because Sandy appears again in a season 5 episode, which is fun. It's a fun fact for you. She apparently gets turned after Willow feeds off of her here. You don't see that part. Not sure exactly when that happens, how that timeline works, but at some point, Sandy gets turned. We're not sure exactly when in the order of events that take place here does this happen. I do like that they don't prolong this with Oz. So Willow feeds off of Sandy. Oz jumps in and says, Willow, you don't want to do this. And then you can see that moment of, like, Vamp Willow trying to figure out who he is and starting to recognize him and saying he's a white hat and everything. And it's just like, how come you're talking to me like we're friends? And this is where Anya comes in. So I like that it's kind of revealed pretty quickly that this isn't this universe's Willow in front of Oz, because I would have really hated them trying to figure out a way to draw this out and make it seem realistic and like a proper reaction from Oz. The fact that they didn't, like, draw this out and try to figure out how to make Oz react appropriately to this. But yeah, Anya comes in and saves the day by saying, he thinks you're the Willow that belongs in this reality.
You know this isn't your world, right? I mean, you know you don't belong here.
No. This is a dumb world. In my world, there are people in chains and we can ride them like ponies.
Because she could get any creepier. She is going to get creepier as it goes on.
Yes. Spoiler alert. So Anya and Vamp Willow plot to figure out a way to get back to that other world with all of the fun pony rides. And we cut back to the library where Willow's kind of just like, this is creepy. I don't like the thought that there's a vampire out there that looks like me. And this is when Xander and Buffy jump in and is just like, no, it's you.
Yeah, it doesn't look like you. It is you.
And there's a fun back and forth about Willow being a dominatrix.
Yeah. You know, everybody got a visual of that in their head.
Mm-hmm. It's a very wholesome mistress of pain scenario. And then Angel comes in. He looks kind of distraught. He's also clearly, like, out of breath. Again, that doesn't really make sense for vampires, but he's out of breath because he's ran straight over here. And just eventually he's just like, something's happened. And then he's just like, Willow's dead. And, like, he's facing Buffy and Xander, and they just kind of, like, nod. Ah, yes. And that's when Willow, who is kind of around the corner, tucked back a little bit, steps out a little bit, and Angel catches a glance of her and is just like, hey, Willow. And then he's like, wait a sec. And Xander's there we're right there with you, buddy. I like the way that Angel feels very much like integrated with the whole group in this episode. Mm-hmm. Like, he feels like he's really in it. And that's something, like, Angel's kind of been guilty of the I'm just here because Buffy's here issue that we tend to have in a lot of our Buffyverse relationships. But here he's like, you know, he had a little conversation with Oz. He's, you know, upset about Willow. He, you know, gets the comic beat from Xander here. Like, it's just feels like he's one of the gang, and I appreciate that. Too bad he's about to leave. Yeah. He's finally fitting in, and then he's like, nope,
becomes
I'm
a
out.
part of everything in time to go.
Yeah. So yeah, they pretty much just acknowledge, okay, well, this is strange, but yeah, she's at the bronze, and she's got a bunch of vampires there, and Buffy jumps up saying that they need to stop the feeding frenzy, and it cuts to outside the library where they're going into action. There is a moment where Buffy asks if they should call in Faith, and Giles says that he doesn't want her in combat yet, not around civilians, which is, I get it, but also harsh.
Yeah.
And Willow's hesitant here. She's just like, what are we going to do with me, the other me? And Buffy kind of comes closer to Willow and says, we just have to stop them, and doesn't really give her an answer. And then Willow kind of comes up with an idea and says she'll catch up, and she runs back into the library and tries to get something from behind the counter there, the circulation desk counter or whatever it is. And Vamp Willow grabs her, and we get our first shot of the two Willows.
Alone at last.
Dun dun dun!
Yeah.
And this is probably the creepy Vamp Willow you were talking about. So Vamp Willow looks at Willow, says she's all fuzzy. I'm
Well,
all
she is.
fuzzy.
She is all fuzzy.
And Willow's like, what do you want? This is when Vamp Willow explains that Anya said that Willow could get her back to her world. This is going to be a very confusing scene to break down.
Yes. It has to be Willow and Vamp Willow.
So, and this is when Willow realizes that she's the reason that Vamp Willow's here, and she's like, oh, oops.
Yeah. That spell brought her.
Yep. And then this is where Vamp Willow gets real creepy and talks about liking the idea of the two of them, and that maybe that she could turn Willow and they could become quite the team and all of that. And Willow's just like, would that mean we have to snuggle? Just a weird place for her to jump, but obviously Vamp Willow's putting out some vibes there, so I get it. Vamp Willow says, what do you say? And then licks like a long lingering lick across Willow's neck. Wanna be bad is what she follows up with, and this is when Willow says, this just can't get more disturbing.
But it does.
It does. Vamp Willow's ready to bite Willow. Willow flips around and says, you're really starting to freak me out. And they have a little scuffle, which results in
Scuffling.
Willow getting thrown behind that counter where she reaches for what she was presumably going for before, which is the tranquilizer gun, and is able to shoot Vamp Willow, knocking her out in this just lovely moment where Vamp Willow realizes what's happened and goes, bitch.
Well, she gets knocked out, and Willow goes and gets everybody, and they come back and presumably lock Vamp Willow up in the book cage.
Yeah. That book cage, I want
They
to
should
know.
stop trusting it.
I want to know what material that book cage, because it doesn't look very sturdy. Yet they lock all kinds of manner of high powered beings in it all the time.
But lots of things get out.
Yeah, but lots of things don't get out too.
They're looking at her, and Willow is very, very oddly like, this. That's me as a vampire. I'm so evil and skanky, and I think I'm kind of gay. And I don't know if they knew of Willow's character arc at this point, but they might have.
My understanding was it was always intended for either Willow or Xander to have that be a part of their character arc, and they weren't sure which one, and so I
don't know when they decided.
Yeah,
it would be
they planted seeds for both of them. But I think at this point they didn't realize that Seth Green had any plans on leaving, because his exit was pretty rushed. So
And Buffy tells her, just remember, a vampire's personality has nothing to do with the person it was. And Angel's like, well, actually, and Buffy glares at him, and he says, that's a good point. So, yeah. Although, I can see it, most of the vampires that are regulars in the Buffyverse, maybe some of them I can see it in. I can see it in Darla. Mm-hmm. Darla is most definitely kind of the same personality.
Yeah. I know.
Like the same vibe.
I really want to know, like, what specific tidbit Angel was going to drop there.
Yeah. Spike, no, I think he's completely different.
Yeah.
Angel's completely different. Drusilla maybe different. Well, like we don't know because she goes insane right before she becomes a vampire. So we don't know.
We don't really know at what level Drusilla was when she was turned, do we?
There's only one flashback in the entire Buffyverse of Darla as a human before she gets turned into a vampire.
Yes.
But that scene, the vibe she gives off and who she is in it, most definitely she's the same.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
I just really, I don't know what's happened, but I've just really been enjoying Angel lately.
Angel is his best in the second half of the third season. I think
good.
it's because they know that he's going to leave for his own show.
Yeah.
So they're trying to make him more of a fan favorite. And they do.
Yeah.
Because he gets a lot better in these last few episodes and in the next few. So,
I've just been really vibing with Angel lately. I like that he kind of echoes Oz's statement here after they talk about that they still have to go to the bronze, and Angel's like, even if they're supposed to wait for her, they may start feeding vampires are not notoriously reliable, which kind of echoes that same thing that Oz said earlier.
It's true.
And this is where Xander suggests we charge in, and Giles says that's dangerous, but he doesn't have a better plan, and then Buffy says, I have a really bad idea. And we cut to the bronze.
And it's a great idea.
It's a great idea.
Best idea ever thought of in the history of ideas. Oh my goodness, yes.
So they're all waiting outside, and then it is revealed that Willow is now dressed up in Vamp Willow's attire. Angel says that they must really be afraid of her, and she walks out in full attire and says, who would it be? And she says that the outfit's binding, but vampires don't really have to breathe, and then glances down and is just like, oh gosh, look at those.
Which is wonderful.
Yes. And Xander does. Xander does look at those, which is also expected and
yes,
kind of enjoyable, honestly. She invites it and he accepts. And Giles moves the conversation on, as Giles does, and suggests that she needs to try to get some of them out so they can even the odds. And Buffy says that they'll come in if Willow gives the signal, and Xander asks what the signal is, and Willow says, me screaming. Angel's also in charge here, like giving Giles and Xander instructions. I love it.
And Buffy instructions.
Yeah. He should get his own show. He's good.
Yeah, maybe he should.
And yeah, Willow heads inside with the just most lovely, hi, I'm back, when the vampire opens the door.
Yeah, right off the bat, they should have realized that was not Vamp Willow. Like,
the fact that they draw this out as long as they do is ridiculous, but also the best.
Yeah.
So yeah, she enters, does a very convincing Vamp Willow, and says that she killed the Willow of this universe and sucked her blood, as we vampires do. And they're confused, saying, Anya's just like, she was our best shot at getting your world back. Willow's like, I don't like that you dare question me. Like, just trying to, like, take ownership. Along the way, she like taps a vampire on the shoulder. She's like, I heard something out there. Why don't you go check? Like,
Yeah, I've actually got in my notes that it took Anya way too long to figure this out. Like, way too long. Although Oz gets it almost immediately.
Yeah.
When Willow gives him that little wave.
Yeah, gets that little wave, and he's just like, ah.
That look on his face, yeah.
It's great. And then Willow kind of has that moment of using her own self-deprecating tendencies to try to justify the reason why Vamp Willow would kill her, and says that she's so weak and accommodating. She's always letting people walk all over her, and then she gets cranky with her friends for no reason. I just couldn't let her live. Which I feel like is a dark enough moment with Willow that we need to take a pause and just be like, damn, Willow, you really are, like, you're going, there probably should have been a scene that was a little bit more like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Because that's pretty harsh. And then she convinces another vampire to go out, saying that first guy's been out for a while. You should probably go check on him. And so then Alphonse suggests, since that plan's out, that they should just start killing everybody. And Willow has to figure out a way out of this one. And we cut back over to the library, where Vamp Willow wakes up and is very upset with her attire.
Yeah. This is like a nightmare, she says. And then Cordelia enters the library, and it's pretty obvious that immediately she is looking for
books.
Wesley.
She's looking for books.
No, she's looking for Wesley.
Yeah, Vamp Willow's like, hey, you, and Cordelia's is like, me? I have a name, you know? And Vamp Willow remembers it, because she should be able to pull it out. We did have that little moment in the Wishverse where she's just like, oh yeah. She's just like, let me out, because I'm so helpless. And I was in here looking for books. I like books, because I'm shy.
Yes, very shy.
And Cordelia calls her out, that famous shy girl act all the boys fall for. And then, as she goes to get the key and returns, she pauses and says, it occurs to me we've never really had the opportunity to talk, you know, woman to woman, with you locked up. And yeah, she suggests that they talk about the ethics of boyfriend stealing. And we cut back to the bronze.
Well, Vamp Willow mentioned she doesn't want to talk. She's hungry.
Mm-hmm.
So, just so you know.
She didn't get that Willow snack earlier she was hoping to get. She got the Sandy snack. Not the Willow snack, though. She'll settle for Cordelia snack. Is that like off-brand Willow snack? Cordelia snack?
Mm-hmm. So we're at the bronze, and Willow, she goes, I'm so bored. I don't, feel like killing anymore. And tries to be all smooth like Vamp Willow and run her fingers through some girl's hair. Doesn't really work because they get tangled in it. She has to awkwardly pull her hand out. And it mentions it would be like shooting fish in a barrel. Where's the fun? And Alphonse says, with all due respect, boss, the fun would be the eating. And then Willow's like, maybe we should let everyone go and give them a 30-second head start. And I'm like, and then Anya starts to figure it out. She's like, wait a minute. And again, I just have to mention that it took Anya way too long to figure this out. Because, like, in this whole situation, she is the only one that has met knows Vampire Willow and regular Willow. Mm-hmm. And she should have been, well, I mean, everyone should have been able to, but, like, especially Anya should have figured this out sooner.
Yeah.
Like, way sooner. And Willow's like, no, I like my plan. And Anya's like, no, nice try. And then they, both try to get the vampire to kill each other. Then we are back to the library with Cordelia kind of rambling and lecturing Vamp Willow about stealing boyfriends and how she didn't really like Xander. He was just there and all that. Vamp Willow is like, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I'll never steal your boyfriend again. And Cordelia's like you could. Mm-hmm. And then Cordelia says, like, okay, I'll let you out. And she unlocks the door. And Willow goes full vamp and says, how about dinner? And then, Cordelia starts screaming and runs away. And then we have one of, like, I'm sure, like, 10 dozen scenes throughout this whole series of someone running down a hallway full of doors that are locked. And finally finds one that's open and goes through it. Cordelia's like, you know what? I didn't mean all that stuff. I want you to have Xander. My blessings on you both. I love that when she says that. My blessings on you both. And Vamp Will's like, yeah, I need fresh blood. And right when she has got Cordelia cornered, Wesley shows up.
Bless him
with a cross and jumps in front of her with a cross. As like, creature of the night, leave this place. And she's not going to do it at first, but then he pulls holy water out of his pocket and kind of shows that to her. Yeah. Like he does it. He just holds it up next to the cross like, look, I've got this. Mm-hmm. And I guess she decides she doesn't want to deal. It's too much effort.
It plays back into that. Yeah, it plays back into that concept that I had in the Wishverse where the vamps had become lazy. Like if there's, because we talk about the white hats basically being like, a cross, haha, and they're like, it's too much work. So I think that still like holds true for me, is that if somebody shows a cross and some holy water, then they're just like, that's too hard. I don't want to do that. They were working on mass production blood. They don't want to have to fight for their food. For reals though, bless Wesley. Because how many times have we had a conversation about if I existed in this universe, knowing the things I know about this, I would always have like crosses on me. I would always have holy water on me. And Wesley's got that. He just has it with him. And I'm just like, you're so smart. And it's like
very intelligent.
It's played like it's supposed to be like a cowardly thing for him to just have all of that stuff. But I'm like, no, that's the smart thing to do. Just have that stuff all the time. Have like a dozen crosses on you at all times. Become hyper religious. It's the best way. And he also like runs into action. Like again, I'm seeing little sparks. Like he's goofy Wesley, but I'm seeing little sparks that make me be like, oh yeah. He's intelligent and he's brave enough to run at the, screams in the high school and not away from them. So that's good. Vamp Willow leaves and they kind of collect themselves and ask if they're all right. And Cordelia's like, you saved me and all that. And then Wesley kind of just like, what's that? And then Cordelia's like, Willow. They got Willow. And then gets over it immediately and turns to Wesley like, you doing anything tonight? It's a joke that only works because we know that's not actually Willow.
Yeah.
If they...
I feel like she would have been more upset than this.
Yeah. Like, I feel like it's a joke and it's played as a joke and it's kind of funny because we know that's not actually Willow. But if that was actually Willow in that circumstance, you would never get away with that joke. People would be livid. And so the fact that we know from Cordelia's POV that is actually Willow, the fact that she does that really feels disingenuous to her character.
Yeah, because she wouldn't really be like that. And I don't know that Wesley would either.
Yeah.
I think Wesley would probably be like, I've got to find Buffy. I've got to find Giles, you know?
It is the bigger misstep, for sure, of the fake out Willow death. So, random observation.
Okay.
That will require me to backtrack, but it's something I realized and did a quick Google search to make sure I had all my context correct. But in the bit before where Anya's calling out Willow for impersonating the Wishverse Vamp Willow, she says, if she's a vampire, then I'm the creature from the Black Lagoon, which points to Anya, and maybe she really is Xander's true soulmate, because there's that joke in the previous season where Cordelia's just like, I'm dating the creature from the Blue Lagoon, and Xander's like, no, it's the Black Lagoon. So Anya knows. Anya got the references correct. Anyway, that was just a little funny note that I realized and has no bearing on any of this, but still fun. And yeah, so that's it for Cordelia and Wesley. We're back at the Bronze. Anya's again just talking about how she hates humans.
I'm just so tired of being around human beings and all their baggage. I don't care if I ever get my powers back. I think he should eat you.
This girl has a history of mental problems dating back to early childhood. I'm a blood-sucking fiend. Look at my outfit.
They tell her that they're like, we should have known. And I kind of agree. They should have known.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes, oh, yeah, could a human do this? And then she screams as loud as she can. And they're like, well, yeah. But then everything starts happening at once. And Angel and Buffy come in, and Giles and Xander come in, which I find it odd that these were the two pairings. Wouldn't they put like one superhuman strength with one human and even it up?
Yeah.
Because we got two superheroes coming in the front and then two just regular people coming in the back.
Yeah, but Giles is the greatest superhero of them all, so I understand.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's pretty awesome.
If you're going to split them up by levels of awesomeness, then it's correct. You put the most awesome with the least awesome, and then the two kind of in the middle awesomes together.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Oz immediately runs down the stairs, grabs Willow, and pulls her up with him, and they're trying to leave.
Yeah, there's a great moment where
fighting.
Yeah, there's a great moment where Willow punches Anya, and it's just like, ow, 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 happy, but ow.
Yeah. They try to leave, and all of a sudden, Vamp Will is there.
Yeah.
And grabs regular Willow, and yeah.
There's a fun bit in all of these cuts where Devin's trying to pull Angel's move from earlier where he's trying to climb up the stage ropes, but he just can't.
Oh, and he still can't do it, yeah.
But yeah.
It's so funny.
As they're trying to get his attention, the Vamp Willow grabs Oz and throws him onto Devin, and then faces off with Willow, and Willow's like, no more snuggles, and then they kind of have their back and forth, which results with Willow being pinned down by Vamp Willow, and Buffy spots it and runs up with a pull cue, breaking it in half over a vampire along the way, I believe, and then getting ready to stake Vamp Willow, and Willow screams Buffy no, and Buffy stops just in time to prevent the staking and pulls Vamp Willow back instead. And,
we've talked about in the one where the kind of the same thing happened.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is kind of like a weird nod, because you have that moment earlier where Buffy's like, different circumstances, that could be me, and it kind of like goes back to that conversation anyway, because it's talking about, oh, I work out, when she compliments her reflexes and all of that. I think there's definitely comparisons to be made, the fact that Buffy was able to stop, but like, I don't really understand why this is a reference here, because you're not really comparing morality here, you're just comparing reflexes.
Yeah.
There is a little bit later on. I'll get to it in a second, but that could be interpreted further. But like in this moment, like the Buffy no versus the Faith no, I'm just like, that's just how quick their reflexes are.
Yeah. It doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah. Turns out Buffy's been a Slayer longer and has more skills. Who knew? And yeah, so Vamp Willow's all upset and just like, this world's no fun. And Willow's just like,
you noticed that too.
You noticed
just
that
like,
too.
oh,
aw, they're bonding. They're gonna bond a little bit more before Vamp Willow leaves.
Yes.
So they're all set up back at the factory, ready to teleport Vamp Willow back, assembling all of the juju together. Xander's confronting Vamp Willow about him being a badass vampire in the other universe, and he's just like, oh yeah, I'm bad. And yeah, that's a moment that exists. I really wished there had been a single, like, puppy drop. Like, I wanted at least once for Vamp Willow to mention that Angel is puppy.
Yeah.
And it just never happened.
She never really saw him, though. I mean, they were together, but never really interacted.
But it could have happened here anyway. Like, I mean, he's standing guard over her. There could have easily been a moment where you could have just made Angel really uncomfortable, and it would have been delightful.
Oh yeah. That never occurred to me until you mentioned it just now. But that should have happened.
What I'm saying is, I'm still not over that torture scene from The Wish. Is basically what I'm saying. Still, I need more Willow straddling Angel, please now. And this is the moment where it actually kind of talks a little bit about the morality. Again, not really good morality either, but Buffy's just like, are we sure about releasing this thing into the wild? It is a demon. And Willow's just like, I just can't kill her. And Buffy's like, no, me neither, which kind of shows that maybe it wasn't a reflexes thing, but actually Buffy being hesitant herself. But this is a case where you should probably kill the thing. This is actually a vampire. It's just a weird comparison to make, and I'm not really sure what they were trying to go for on this whole Buffy versus Faith reaction reflexes ability to kill things that should be killed versus shouldn't be killed. Because there's definitely a correlation here, but I'm not really sure what they're doing with it.
What it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
They, kind of send her back.
Yeah. Willow kind of says if we send her back to her world, it's the way it should be anyway. And Anya is there helping with the spell to send her back. So this is the first time that we have like Anya like integrated with the group in any way, shape, or form.
Well, she tells them, when I have my powers back, you will all grovel before me.
Yeah. Doesn't quite work that way, but it's certainly causes some tension much later when she does get her powers back.
No, Willow and Vamp Willow, like,
they have a
roll
moment.
their eyes at her at the same time.
Yeah. It's kind of like one of those, because earlier Willow's just like, we have a big nothing in common, and then they're both rolling their eyes at Anya there. It's kind of like, the Xander replacement thing where he's clearly a bad influence on himself. I feel like Willow and Vamp Willow, if they hung out long enough, they'd be like, oh yeah. They'd get to really enjoy each other's company.
I agree.
Probably because Vamp Willow would turn Willow and then they'd both be Vamp Willows. But, you know.
It would be such a great team.
Yeah, they really would. And so Willow wishes Vamp Willow good luck and asks her to try to not kill people and then gives her a hug, which is just the cutest thing ever. And then Vamp Willow makes it naughty.
Of course.
And yeah, they do the spell. They send her back right at the moment that she was pulled from, which is the moment where Oz is shoving her against the broken piece of wood and staking her.
Yeah.
Yup. And she almost says a bad word, but she doesn't have time.
It sounds like she says, "Oh, fine."
I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be "oh, fuh."
Yeah, I think so too. But like in the that's what it sounds like, and in the script it says, "Oh, fine."
Really?
Yep.
I always interpreted her of that being like one of those because this is how primetime TV gets away with swearing, is they say the first half of the swear and then cut away.
Yes, and I agree. But in the script it has "Oh, fine."
Oh.
And once I read that, I could hear it.
Really? I'll have to go back and listen because I've always interpreted that as off. Okay, and then I guess the weird moral of this story ending scene that doesn't really make sense to me, but okay, we'll take it. Buffy and Willow are discussing going out, and Willow's just like, she feels like she needs to stay home and do homework and floss all the time and die a virgin, and Buffy's like, you can't OD on virtue, and Willow's really concerned about seeing herself all evil and stuff, and God, hope that never happens. Oops. And she's just like, I don't ever want to be like that. But then Percy shows up and has written not only one, but two outlines, because he wasn't sure which Roosevelt he was supposed to write on.
Yeah, I love it.
And like has all of this.
Of her.
Yeah, has all of this stuff ready and organized in its own little neat folders, and then says that he can retype anything and just to let him know what he did wrong, and he'll fix it, and starts to leave, but then comes back and leaves an apple as well. And then Buffy repeats the question, "You want to go out tonight?" And Willow's just like, "9 sound good." And yep, that's it. It's just a little jokey ending, but I'm not really sure what the closure is on Willow in this episode.
Yeah, like, did she stop feeling like she was being taken advantage of, or
yeah, like
what happens there?
Where it's like, Willow had some pretty dark stuff to say about herself when she was pretending to be Vamp Willow and was able to kind of talk openly in her act. And then we get to this moment where she's just like, I have to double down on the virtue. And then she realizes, I guess, if she sticks up for herself more, that people won't walk all over her as much. Because apparently if you choke a dude out, he'll do his assignment. But I'm not really sure that's the moral lesson we need either.
Yep, that's what we learned, though.
That's what we learned. If people start walking all over you, just choke them. Kick them across the pool table and choke them a bunch, and then they'll start listening to you.
Yeah.
Valuable lessons. That was a fun episode. I enjoyed it a lot. I miss Vamp Willow already.
Yeah, we never see her again.
No.
Which is sad.
It is sad. She is definitely prominent among the fans of, like, representations of Willow, though. A lot of people are just like, all the different versions of Willow, and Vamp Willow's always there. Her 2 little episode cameos. Alright, so next episode is Enemies. So, the evil plot that's been afoot shall be revealed. It didn't get drawn out very long.
It really didn't.
It's kind of shocking to me, realizing
it always feels like it was longer.
Yeah. Feels like there was a long period of time where Faith was working with the mayor and nobody knew it, and nope.
Yeah, it's just like one episode.
Yeah. Get to have more Angel. I'm excited. I'm so in love with Angel right now, so I'm really excited because I know Angel plays a pretty prominent role in that episode. I'm just like, yes, let's go. Let's do this. Let me analyze this from every angle. That's next episode, and I believe, if I'm doing my math right, that will be our 50th podcast.
Really?
Yes.
Yay.
We've done 50 of these or about to do 50 of these bad boys. When we record the next one, we'll have done 50 of these bad boys. That's how that works.
But it's exciting.
It is. We have nothing special planned. We're just going to acknowledge it. Maybe for the 100th episode, we'll do something special. We'll set off fireworks.
Oh, okay.
We'll set off fireworks and just play the audio for everybody. Woo! All right. Thank you all so much for listening. And this is where we say bye.
Bye.